So, good afternoon for all of you. I guess I know 90% of the people here. The ones I don't know, I wish I will know maybe in the future. We are in the webinar series on regulation and governance, and the section of this webinar is on trust and regulation, which is the condition. This is the topic of my ERC and research with a few of the people here. And today we have Sharon Matzkin with us. Sharon is a postdoctoral researcher with me at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, but also lecturer at the Emek Israel College in the north. She finished her PhD in political psychology at the University of Haifa with Professor Daphna Canetti, and will speak about trust extension, meaning to what extent different trust attributes or different trust attitudes are affecting each other. Or you can say it also, to what extent different trust experience affect each other. So Sharon, thank you so much, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, David, for that lovely introduction. I'm just going to share my presentation. Okay, can everybody see?
Yes, we see.
Excellent.
And now, excellent. Go on.
Okay, so thank you all for being here today. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm going to present a paper that is nearly finalized. It's called Channels of Trust, a macro interactive approach. And the core question that we want to know is, if you trust your neighbors, do you also trust government institutions? If you trust people that are unknown, do you trust political institutions, or vice versa? So this results in three research questions about trust. The majority of papers that research trust treat trust as a uniform or one dimension, but we wanted to know whether trust was structured, whether social and institutional trust divides into distinct, empirically separable dimensions, and if they do, which kind of trusts tend to hang together? Is it particular forms of trust that are associated with particular institutional domains? And if that is the case, then what conditions those associations or extensions, as we call them? I'm going to define it in a minute. We wanted to know which individual and national contexts actually condition these relationships, whether they inhibit them or they enable them. Just going to move this pane over here. Sorry. Okay. So we build on three theoretical traditions. We've got social capital, that posits that society comes first. People who engage in voluntary institutions that engage with one another actually tend to build trust which extends beyond the initial social associations, meaning trust is built up from a bottom-up relationship. It starts grassroots and then it builds up. On the flip side, we've got institutional performance theory, meaning institutions come first. Impartial and effective institutions are associated with higher social trust among citizens in something called a rainmaker effect, meaning that people or citizens deem other people to be trustworthy if they see that institutions are being trustworthy or you can trust them. And then we've got a third framework, which is the interactive framework, which means which posits actually that these two things are not mutually exclusive. It's not only social capital, it's not institutional performance, but it's some kind of linkage together. And these are conditions by personal dispositions and national contexts. So this is very interesting to us. Before I dive deep into the analyses that we did, I just want to define what we mean by channel of extension. So we define a channel of extension as a pathway connecting one trust domain to another. And we suggest that these pathways differ across domains, across individuals and institutional contexts. We focus on extension from one specific form of trust to another, a specific form of trust, and we deem this as non-directional, meaning that one extension of trust can either originate or extend into a different domain of trust. We consider a channel of trust extension open when this association between trust types is positive and significant, net of individual and country level controls, and we deem it stronger or weaker depending on the magnitude of this association, meaning that channels are either enabled or inhibited by individual characteristics and country level institutional qualities that then enable or inhibit the extension of trust from one domain to the other. So in the paper, we've got 9 different hypotheses. I tried to simple them down into big titles for simplicity. So our first set of hypotheses deals with domain-specific associations, where the social and institutional trust are differentiated, where the specific social trust types associate more with one institutional domain than the other. That is one set of hypotheses. We also expect to see this as a bidirectional relationship. Social and institutional trusts are mutually associated, albeit distinct. And a third set of hypotheses shows that we expect them to be conditional on micro and macro conditions. Specifically, education will reveal critical citizens, religiosity will reveal sustained institutional confidence, and the national context of these conditions will provide the strength of these associations. So here where it starts to get a bit difficult. I'll try to walk you through it. We had 2 stages of measurement validation. We've got the first stage, and then after we completed the first stage, we went on to the second stage. The first stage was actually determining whether we did have different dimensions. We entered 13 trust items from World Value Survey Wave 7. We had 84,000, initially we had 84,000 individual responses. In the social trust dimension, we entered neighbors, known persons, strangers, other religions, other nationalities, and generalized trust. And the institutional trust items, we had government, parliament, political parties, civil service, elections, and police and courts. We then entered all of these into exploratory factor analysis. This is just an overview. I'm going to dive deep into each one of these stages as we continue. So we had exploratory factor analysis on all of these put in together, and we extracted 4 factors. We had the political, law and order, out-group and in-group, and then we entered all of those models into a multi-level model. We then created null models because we wanted to see whether, and we kept the country variables random effect. We wanted to see if they had any meaningful variation, and they did. I'm going to elaborate on that. We then ran forward models, meaning social trust predicted institutional trust. We then entered the moderators, and then we flipped everything on its head. We just changed the direction, and we wanted to see if this also worked in reverse modeling, where institutional trust then predicted social trust. So I'm just going to dive deep into each one of these. So as I said, we had 13 trust indicators. These are them elaborately: trusted neighbors, people you know for the first time, people you know personally, people from other religion, other nationalities, and generalized trust. Then we had 7 items of institutional trust, which is government, parliament, political parties, civil service, elections, police, and courts. We then realized that we initially also had family trust, but we realized that family trust in 77% of the countries that we measured family trust, it was just the highest trust that we could find. And that then reached a ceiling effect for us. So there wasn't a lot of variance going on there. And if we had entered that into the models, then it would have been a bit skewed. So that was excluded. Family trust was excluding because of a ceiling effect. Generalized trust is binary, yes and no, and that was kept as a single item control and wasn't entered into factor analysis. So this is what the factor analysis looks like. The first factor, as you can see here, all of them loaded variably well above the threshold of 0.3 onto political trust. Law and order, police and courts were very nicely here on the law and order factor. Outgroup trust was other religion, other nationalities. You can see neighbor trust in known persons here, but I'm going to tell you something about that. And as you can see, I hope you can see down here, people met for the first time actually cross-loaded onto outgroup, as you can see here, and in-group, as you can see here. So we couldn't really determine which factor that was on, so it was deemed a single item. So this resulted then in 4 factors. We had 5 items for political trust, 2 items for law and order, 2 items for outgroup, and these were all then very, very with reliability test. Cronbach alpha was very good, but in-group trust and we entered those as single items because neighbors and known others didn't really form well. The reliability was deemed very low, so we couldn't really enter them into a composed measure. So we have single items, which was trust in neighbors, trust in known persons, trust in strangers, and generalized trust. Okay. Here, I'm just going to show you, I really don't like showing these in a presentation, but I'm just going to point out a few things. First is the conditional R squared, which means actually the interclass correlation coefficient, which is very, very high. And this actually justified as entering everything into a multi-level model. This shows that 33% of the variance in political trust and 22% or a bit more of the variance in law and order trust comes from a country context, meaning that holding everything else constant or even not entering anything into the models, these were very, very high, and that what's justified the multi-level modeling. So what did we find? We found that trust was not monolithic. It separates into distinct social and institutional dimensions. Yes, these are correlated, but not very highly. There are 2 institutional domains, political and law and order. We now found that there is domain of trust specificity. The 2 institutional domains have different predictors and respond to different national conditions. We know that there is a selective extension. I'm going to show you that in a minute. Trust in strangers and generalized trust were associated more with political institutions, and trust in neighbors and known persons were associated more with law and order. I'll show you how we deemed that later. And country contexts conditioned differently. As I showed you, the ICC revealed that a big percentage of variance, both in political and law and order, trust was explained by country contexts. We also saw that democracy was the strongest moderator of political trust, and GDP was the strongest moderator of law and order trust. And we also saw that individual factors mattered. Education related more to critical citizens and religiosity to sustained confidence, but mostly where institutions were weak. Okay, so remember I told you that different type of social trust leaned towards different type of institutional trust. So if you could just see here, for instance, we've got known people. person's trust, or trust in known people. So here, and political trust, with all factors entered into the model, we can see a 0.38, for instance, but a much higher coefficient for law and order trust. And we can see differences, for instance, also here in stranger trust, which is 0.6, a coefficient of 0.6. And for law and order, a coefficient of 0.3. And that was very interesting to us because we then saw, okay, so people that we know or people that we're familiar with, maybe that loads onto institutions that are more close to us, meaning law and order, police, courts, institutions that we deal with nearly on a daily basis. And maybe people that we have abstract ideas of trust towards, maybe that then loads onto an abstract form of trust, institutional trust, meaning political trust. So instead of eyeballing it, we then created a differential tilt. We created something called, I call it a delta beta. We actually took those betas and we entered them. We created a new variable where we took the standardized political trust and we subtracted it from the standardized law and order to create this new variable, this new delta beta from the previous model. And then we regressed it on the other indicators that were in the multi-level model. And we found something very interesting. We found that this delta beta stranger trust leaned more towards political, as did outgroup trust, as did generalized trust. But people that we were more familiar with, meaning neighbor trust or people that we know, leaned more towards law and order trust, meaning that there is a differentiation. There is some kind of loading of abstract trust towards abstract institutions, and institutions that we're more familiar with load onto more known trust. So going back to the different levels of what we did, when we reversed these models, we found out that they were comparable. Social trust was associated with institutional trust and vice versa, meaning we couldn't really determine any direction of trust, either going bottom up or top down. And we realized that this was something that was going on in mutual reinforcement. So this was an implication that social capital theory and institutional performance are complementary and not competing. And that individual level, country level context conditions these associations. So if we look at the simple slopes here, we can see education and GDP per capita. When we deem GDP per capita low, medium, and high, we can actually see that the connection or the association between political trust and association between political trust and education, for instance, becomes nearly flat. Okay, these are standardized. That's why you can see a 0 in the middle. But what I want you to focus on is the fan out. There's the fanning effect. And we can see that there is a lot of differentiation between the slopes here. If you look at liberal democracy, I'm just going to move you guys over here because I really can't see. You can see the opposite. You can see that the association between predicted political trust and outgroup trust, when we look at liberal democracy and liberal democracy is high, this is actually very steep. If we look at it when it's low, it nearly becomes flatlined. And this is the opposite here. Okay, so I think that is it from me.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sharon. And now to the difficult question, what does it mean? Why care? So I have my own ideas, but you are leading, and I think you have to summarize yourself now. I guess the question will come anyway, so please start with it.
I think the biggest implication of all of this is, where do we focus on correcting low trust. Just fixing institutions is not enough if we don't look at the whole ecology of trust. And if we don't take all of the ecology of trust into consideration, we would be focusing a lot of effort in maybe in the wrong place. Um, and democracies will continue to backslide, or trust will erode, and people won't adhere to policies by the government. I think that's the main implication of this, is the policy is policy driven. Methodologically, I think now that we've seen this picture, we've seen the differential picture of trust, we can't treat it as uniform anymore. We have to see what kinds of trust map onto what kind of institutions and vice versa. And what is it that creates or enables this trust to flow and extend. And once we understand that, we can open those taps, we can enable those things, but it has to be very pinpointed and it has to be policy focused. That's what I think the implications are.
Yeah, I think it's a good, very good answer. I will just add a few thoughts before opening the discussion for others. Um, so we start with the idea, where do we have problem of trust, right? Do we have a problem of trust in institutions, or it's a social problem? Is it just where is the where do we see the problem, in society or in the state? And how society and the state are interacting when trust is failing, and where they should and how should they interact when we want to say increase trust. Not Actually, not trust in general, because we believe in vigilant trust, meaning very careful trust. No, not all trust is good, right? You have to trust the trustworthy, not the other way around. So this is the context. And you say policy, but I also say theory. How society and politics interact, right? Also with the economics. And the World Value Surveys, the IVS, as Shahaf is working with, are giving us huge number of respondents and over time, which is very, very important. So now time for questions and answers. Anyone want to start? Please come in. Yes, Shahaf, please. Shahaf and then Ruth, please. And then Gal.
Um, Thank you, Sharon. It's a really good study. I want to comment only a few things. The first thing is why you excluded the item of the trust in armed forces, because I saw when I looked at the whole data of the WVS series that this trust item is strongly related to the law and order factor. This is the first question. And the second question is whether you can explain or be more explicit about the analytical strategy of using the reverse modeling. Are you trying to achieve or claim for causality between the measures? The third comment is actually whether you tried to do a robustness test where the factors of in-group trust indeed included these two items as a unified variable. And also, I would suggest that you will do another robustness test in which the outgroup variable, the outgroup factor, will include the trust in strangers, because both of them are strong in the results, and I believe that if they will be measured together, and then you will see even a stronger relationship between this specific factor and the political trust.
Thank you, Chahaf. Sharon, shall we go? Do you want to answer or first or?
Let's take a few more questions.
Okay, thank you. We said Ruth, please.
Thank you. Really interesting. Thank you. It was really just a quick question. With your countries, 65, I think, did you find if there were any surprising outliers that you couldn't predict certain sorts of trust from, or did it really follow the socio-demographic and political variables related to that country, or do some countries kind of confound that thing? Thank you.
Thank you. And Ruth, and now Gal, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. It's very fascinating. My question is more about, I understand the factor analysis and the grouping, but I think I'm more interested in knowing how this kind of different interpersonal trust can predict or I can guess predict different kinds of political trust, right? So, for example, what can predict trust in the government specifically or in elections? And I think that can be kind of the answer to what David previously asked, where do we have problems of trust to begin with? So I think maybe outgroup distrust can help us understand in polarized societies why we have lower trust in the government, but higher trust in the elections, for instance. And I was wondering if you did some analysis like that. And thank you.
Thank you, Gal. And it's now time for you, Sharon, to answer. Try to be concise.
Okay, Shachaf, why we excluded trust in armed forces? What we were trying to do is actually see or take into consideration the trust items that people have nearly daily associations with. So in Israel, yes, we have high associations with the armed forces, but it's not necessarily so in other countries. So we excluded that. You're asking about the reverse modality just to see if it holded. We can't, it's cross-sectional, of course, so we can't really say anything causal. We just wanted to see if it held in both directions, and it did, and it was comparable. Robustness test, you were asking about factors of in-group, or why we included stranger, right? Or why we excluded stranger.
No, I understand why you excluded stranger, because it was also loaded with the outgroup and also loaded with the in-group. I asked whether you try to create a unified variable of outgroup in one analysis with strangers, and the second with the in-group items, because I believe it will show you the actual effect of these types of trust, these theoretical types of trust with political trust, because they are intercorrelated, as you showed in the initial findings of the Pearson correlation matrix.
Yeah. So no, I didn't do that with stranger chess. We did do that with family chess just to see if it made any big difference, and it didn't really. But no, that's a good idea. I might have to do that and see if it does change anything significantly. Ruth, yes, there were two countries that were very interesting. One was Argentina. Apparently, they trust everything and everything. Everything, all the trust items there seem to be really high. And Egypt, we had to exclude Egypt because we couldn't find that nobody answered the institutional trust items. So that says a lot, but that was interesting just to see that. So it was two different ends of the same continuum. Gal, we didn't go down into the granular of government and elections and stuff like that. Yes, you're right. I think that's the point for another paper, maybe a drill down into all of these factors, just to see how. First of all, the issue of distrust is very interesting, also, as you mentioned, but that would be a more focal paper. This was just really a grand scheme, just to see what the ecology of trust was in this aspect. Yeah, thanks.
Thank
I
you.
can see.
And I see a question from Chiduri, please.
Hi, Sharon. It was really an amazing presentation. I have a broader question. Like, I was just wondering, like, in your research, after you conducted the research and after you sort of had the results, what was your feeling? Like, why did you feel that the social trust was loading on to institutional trust and there was a bidirectional relationship? Why did you feel that? What was like the bigger reason or your understanding from the data?
You're asking about the data or my feeling? Because I've got
Like
two different answers.
yeah, like your final analysis or maybe, you know, a core takeaway. Like, why did you feel they sort of had a bidirectional loading relationship?
Why they loaded, or why we asked the question?
No, why they did.
Well, this is the whole core of trust extension. What the mechanism behind it is, I have my ideas. I think that's a topic for another paper. It's the mechanism of what allows all of this.
Right.
But I think it has to do something with vulnerability, but I'm not going to say it out loud.
Yeah. No, I thought along those lines, and that's why I just asked you. But thank you so much for your comment.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah.
Professor Rachel Alterman, please.
Hi, thanks very much for this nice presentation. I'm a professor of urban planning and law, and I would like to ask you to see whether we can, or you and I could design a research which would have practical implications, and the focus is differences in degrees of trust across government institutions. Not all government institutions, but particular ones relevant to particular policy and legal issues. In Israel, we have a malady, an illness called distrust in local government. We are very high in the distrust of local government scale, if there were one. This has bad implications, consequences for Israeli citizens, for the cost of housing, for management of space, because the assumption that central government is more trustworthy, and I'm not speaking about the last 3.5 years, where, of course, we in Israel have a big, or part of Israel, half of Israel has a trust fall, a fall in the oxygen of trust towards national government. So this distrust does not allow, psychological, does not allow central government or the parliament to decentralize powers to the local level. That has terrible implications. Not discussed, not studied. David, maybe we should research that. I could also pose, that's an hypothesis that, as I said, would have important practical implications. There are also targeted or tailored remedies that could be offered to raise this trust. But so long as they're within this loop of distrust, those remedies are not considered by central government. In fact, they make things worse all the time. Another hypothesis that I would floor is a difference in degree of trust between, now notice, the Ministry of Finance and the Israel Lands Authority. Hypothesis, Land Authority. Hypothesis, the Israel Land Authority is the most distrusted body in Israel on the national level, even more than the institution that takes our taxes. Anyhow, again, with major implications, if that could be proven. So, challenges, grant money.
Yeah.
Sorry, I spoke too long, perhaps.
Fantastic.
Sharon, please. Any comment?
This was very interesting, Rachel. I think David and I and you have to have a conversation.
Yes, I've been courting him. Don't ask. I play the serenade just below his window at home.
I see Hanan Cohen raising his hand, and I also would love to hear Ilya's comment. So Hanan, it's great to see you. Come on, please.
Hi. So first, I wanted to tell Rachel that, as far as I know, the level of trust in local governments in Israel is much higher than in the national government, according to the IDI surveys, and it's not new. I mean, we see it in the last 3 years, but also like 5, 6, 7 years back. It's double. So I guess you talk about the trust between the government bodies towards the local government, which is something else. But as far as we look at the citizens,
also, I should also distinguish again. Stop dissecting trust into targets that can be regulated. I'm talking about the local government as a regulator. And what we have in recent years is the local government as a service supplier. On that, yes, local governments in Israel probably will show much higher trust, certainly the COVID period and the war periods. But as regulators of land, property, in fact, real estate regulation is always problematic in any country. But this great distrust makes us pay a lot of money for everything we do with housing, with land consumption.
Yeah.
Okay. And my question is, I come from Oz, an Israeli NGO that worked with the very diverse network of leaders all over professional entities in the country, and I lead the R&D of trust at Maoz, and I think about this a leader on the ground, a practitioner that hears your what?
Ask you to return. He works on trust at Maoz. He's doing the research.
What's Maoz?
Maoz is an NGO that works with civil servants to improve their training. Right, Hanan? Correct?
Yeah, and also bring about change in Israel through working on trust in institutions, between systems, etc. So I think about this leader, this practitioner that hears what you say, Sharon. And so, and I try to think what we can bring him from this study. So first, you understand that it's not enough to work on the trustworthiness of your institution, right? The integrity, the performance, the benevolence, whatever. But you also have to take into account the effect of what you're doing at the social level, right? First, inside communities, and then between communities. So if you come from the law and order, the courts, so you have to think about what's going on inside the community. There are...
Yeah, we are losing you.
Yeah, it's a pity. I would really like to hear what you have to say.
Whatever. And if you on the relationship between groups is also very important. So I just want to understand if this is the message, or there's something I'm missing, or there's other like recommendations to practitioners to how to advance trust in their institutions.
I will be assertive here, and I'll say something like this. The approach of this research agenda is that there is ecology of trust, and that the ecology of trust represent dependencies, interdependencies between trust experiences in different level. So when you corrupt one institution, the effects are spreading everywhere. So in a way, it's a systemic approach to trust, which looks at the micro foundation or the micro experiences, day-to-day experience, but also general experience and how it works. But on another dimension, you can say that when people are answering surveys, they represent, and when you ask them, do you trust X or do you trust Y? What they tell you is defined by the trust perceptions, the trust beliefs that exist in the society, which means that the observation or the data is not really independent. So this interdependency is also corrupting the analysis, but also it is an approach to understanding what's going on and change. So critical point in time where trust is changing is important. Where the decline starts, in society level or in political level, and how does it affect the other indicators? It's also important. Do we have a problem of trust at the social level or in the institutional level? I think we have both, but it's different in degree in different countries, and not all countries are going the American way, where there is less social trust and less institutional trust. So this is something. And now, Ilya, please.
Thank you, David. Actually, thank you very much, Sharon. I do not have anything new to say in addition to what I wrote in the feedback that I shared earlier. Therefore, I don't have questions. I just want to thank you once again. I enjoyed the presentation, and I think that the central idea that there are domain-specific connections between different types of trust, I think it's really big. And I believe it can significantly contribute to the discussions on trust. So I think that it really should be perhaps highlighted even more than is highlighted in this version of the presentation. So I think this paper has a bright future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Michael and Etty, please, you're the PhD students, and I'd like to hear you. Please, Michael, please first.
Yeah, thank you very much. So it was really interesting. Connecting to the question of Professor Alterman, I was wondering about trust in Israel, if in Israel in general, what implications of trust and distrust you can think on regarding to regulation. And also it's jumped on my mind that when we think about artificial intelligence, which is the field that I am interested in, there is this notion of trustworthy AI, which is really important. And everyone is talking about trust in artificial intelligence, which of course is different from your research, but maybe you can also develop something about that as well. So thank you again.
Thank you, Michael.
Sharon, please answer to Michael. Etty is in a noisy environment. She cannot speak, so we'll.
Michael, thank you very much for asking that question. I think it all boils down to transparency. And I think this black box of AI, the more it's obscure, we will not be able to trust it. The more government is obscure or not even listening to what, we're talking about Israel for this matter. not listening to what's happening, or not even talking about what's happening. The last I saw, Weiner, Benjamin, and now not going into politics, didn't even speak to the people of Israel. And we had 3 barrages already of missiles coming over from Iran this morning. It's all got to do with transparency. The more transparent a government or an institution will be, the more forthcoming trust will be. That's what I think. If I have to connect it to AI, I think it's going to be exactly the same. If we unleash this or unveil this black box, and I don't know if we can, if it's got to do with AI, then transparency is going to be the name of the game.
What you had here is the liberal approach to trust. More transparency, more trust.
I think so.
Which makes sense to some extent. Another aspect I'd like to invite you to think about regulation by performance, or performance regulation. Ruth Dixon here would understand me the best because she works with Christopher Wood on those issues, and she's expert on regulation and governance. So the idea is that you move from command and control, say, or process-based regulation to performance-based regulation, which means that you regulate by outcome. You rank and rate and give grades and so on. Is it a mechanism to increase trust, or does it reflect distrust? So how do you balance trust and distrust within a new regulatory strategy, which might give more leeway, not necessarily, might give more leeway in the implementation, in the process of governing, but move the sticks or the carrot to the outcomes? And how do you look at that issues of trust from above, but also from the point of view of the regulatee, the one who has to obey or to perform and is being measured? So those are questions that are of interest of us with ETI in the context of higher education, governing higher education, or increasing the quality of higher education with performance-based regulation. So that's my intervention here. Anyone wants to comment more? Ruth? And I see Chuderi, Ruth, and then Chuderi, please.
Yes, I will chip in. That's very kind, David, but I don't think I'm an expert at all in regulation, but I'm interested in it. But no, what you said about transparency is also very interesting. But and I do agree that, you know, when you rank countries on a transparency index, that is a good, you know, you kind of like the more transparent countries better in certain ways. But there's also this sort of tyranny of light thing that freedom of information came in the UK, and Tony Blair said that was the worst thing he had ever done, because suddenly everybody has to be able to put forward everything into the public domain, and it makes the actual officials quite defensive and maybe change their actions in order to kind of protect themselves. So there is a kind of balance there in transparency. It like David just said, the regulated people have to agree with that as well. But no, it's a really interesting topic. Thank you.
Yeah. I always bring the ambulance example of Christopher, where the ambulances are waiting outside the hospital gates because they are measured on the time in the emergency room. So in order to avoid being ranked on emergency time, ambulance were kept outside. This was Christopher, very nice example, which I will never forget. Thank you. And Chuderi, please.
Hi, Sharon. You were talking a little bit around transparency and AI as well. And I was thinking that actually, while a lot of reports and data do point at stuffs like explainability increasing trust, like transparency, explainability, white box, increasing trust, there's also a lot of data showing that higher levels of transparency don't necessarily give rise to trust. So it's right now a little 50-50 kind of thing. So my question, it's not a question, or it's just like a discussion or something, that is, when you have institutions then guaranteeing transparency of AI, with this kind of data, you have institutions saying that, okay, no, now we'll invest in AI, which is transparent. Will that necessarily give rise to trust? Or maybe maybe it will not directly give rise to trust. There might be some kind of intermediation. Like I don't expect a direct answer because I think this is subject to research and stuff. But I was just thinking that because the data on transparency and trust it's not like solid yes from everyone. That yes, transparency gives rise to trust. So now when we have okay, sorry.
Thank you. You made your point. I will give Sharon the opportunity to answer, but Nushin and Enrique are also invited to participate. So Sharon, please.
Thank you very much. I'm not an expert on AI. I do have a paper on AI with trust in connection with exposure to terrorism, but that's a different subject. I think the one to ask would be maybe Michael Sierra, who's the expert here. But I want to say something about rising trust levels. And one of the take-home messages from this presentation today was amongst whom. It's always individual context. The contexts really matter. I don't expect everybody, even if AI would be transparent for that matter, that everybody would understand what it necessarily means. You would have to have the expertise levels of people who are highly experienced in understanding what this unveiling of black box means, yeah. And I think the same goes with government, and it goes with any institution that is deemed trustworthy or just distrustful. It all depends on context, and in this presentation, it's individual and country level contexts. I think that's a question that needs to be researched. I think and I think it's fast evolving and it's really important now. But maybe Michael want to say a word or two about this because he's the expert on AI here.
I don't think I'm an expert, but I agree with you about transparency, that it's part of all of the regulations, even in the state level at the US and even in the AA Act. So yeah, transparency apparently is a very important thing.
Let me put the issue in context. So the question is, which regulatory instrument would increase or decrease trust in whom, under which conditions? So transparency is one regulatory instrument. So we design a research experiment with many instruments and compare them, usually on citizens, but it will be great sometimes to do on public servants. Hanan, if we can get easy access to public servants is a gold mine, right? For us. Also for the questions that Rachel raised. So, but what we are doing with Michael is we ask really which intermediary under which conditions would increase trust. So with Michael, we are working on types of intermediaries, and there is also research on regulatory instruments. Yep. More questions? more comments? If not, we will give Sharon the applause and say thank you all for your participation. Next Wednesday, 2 days from now, if the war will not kill us, we will have Rotem Edzini speaking about intermediaries in digital governance, a qualitative paper, comparative. You are all invited. Thank you so much and see you soon. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank you.
For the presentation.